Welcome back to Vintage HLC Show and Tell. Today we're going to look at the Colonial Shape. This is a follow-up video for number 69. I've already looked at the Colonial Shape, but I want to revisit the differences in the hollowware because I have another piece I want to show. So as a recap, Colonial was made from roughly 1900 to 1909. It's a fancy embossed shape. It was shares many of its treatments with the American Beauty shape as well as the other fancy embossed shapes of the same time period. But for some unknown reason, after Colonial was introduced, they redesigned the hollowware. And it's very early, so you've got this first style which is much more difficult to find than the second style. Now previously we've already looked at these sauce boats. We're going to look at them again very quickly. This is the first style. Rather pronounced foot. The second style has a stubby foot. First style has a rather jagged, sharp edge. And the second style has a curved edge. Another thing I didn't notice until today is that the spout is much wider on this. Whereas on the second version, it's more pinched. So it probably pours a little bit better. As far as their capacities, they're basically identical. Again, there's your first style. And here's the second style. And they're marked Colonial. This one has the fleur-de-lis marking. This one should have a eagle and lion. The jugs, there are two styles of jugs. It mainly involves the handle. This one has this segmented handle that points outward. That's your first version, where all the jugs of the second style, they're going to point inward. So they have a little bit of a wider opening at the top. Probably easier for pouring. These hollowware pieces, there's the second style. I wanted to pull these and show the segmented handles and finials. Almost looks like a seahorse's head. And there are 9 lidded pieces in Colonial. The individual sugar, the regular sugar, the covered butter, the covered casserole, the covered dish, the covered soup tureen, the covered sauce tureen, the covered oyster tureen, and the teapot. And these lidded pieces, the first style, and this is why I'm doing a follow-up video, because in the previous video I didn't have one to show. In fact, I looked at a picture from Joe Cunningham's book. But I've since found a lidded piece with the first style handles and finials. And this is your first style with the ribbon handles. And of course we have a ribbon finial. So this is a covered sauce tureen, eagle and lion Colonial back stamp. This is your first version. And then we have a soup tureen, which is essentially a larger version of the sauce tureen. And it has that segmented finial and the segmented handles. So this is the restyled version. We can look at the bases. We see something similar with the bases that we saw at the sauce boat, with a very pronounced foot as opposed to a stubby foot. So you will see these ribbon finials on those 9 shapes that I just listed. And this is an odd treatment to this golden pink tracing going on that highlights the embossing. I was able to find the treatment number for that. It is embossing traced in pink and gold, pattern number 4051. There's also blue and gold, which is 4050, and maroon and gold, which is 4052. So there are 3 different ones. This has the gold and pink. It's also on the base. So the only reason why I think that they redesigned these handles and finials has to do with being able to just hold them, because with that collapsed design they're not easy to grab onto, whereas these are a little more open and are much easier to handle. So that's enough about the redesigning of the Colonial hollowware. The other thing I wanted to mention about Colonial that I didn't before are the Alaska ice cream dishes. These are 7 1/4 inches in diameter, and they're almost always marked Colonial. They're part of the assortment. There are several pieces in the Colonial assortment. The Danube tea set, the Geisha tea set, the Geisha jugs. You will see those in the catalog listings, though they're not in the Colonial style. These have distinct embossing. Technically, these are specialty pieces, but they're often listed in the Colonial assortments. They're almost always marked with Colonial markings. That's a circle mark. It's a fleur-de-lis mark with Colonial underneath. Another circle mark. But these four pieces that I have out, none of them came from Colonial dinnerware. So you're not going to find a whole set with these patterns. This is art china. This is white pets with the swans. Some green tint with a Colonial couple decal. Daisy decals. Now you will find this decal on Colonial dinnerware, but you will not find it in conjunction with these gold stamps and the gold stipple. So this is a specialty piece. And then finally, some rose decals and gold stamps. So those are your Alaska ice creams, almost always marked Colonial, though not necessarily part of any Colonial dinnerware set. So that's it for today. Next time we're going to look at the apple tree bowls.